In today's episode of Locked On Pistons podcast, we are joined by friend of the podcast, Hal, to break down the Detroit Pistons Summer League featuring Ron Holland, Bobi Klintman, Marcus Sasser, and others. Will break down everything that you need to know in today's episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I'm your host, Kuka Hill. You can find me over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. Free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more as the playoffs have winded down. The sports stop sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all our customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every single day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Today, you'll hear more about FanDuel a little later. Like I said, we are joined by a friend of the podcast, Hal. We're going to be talking about Ron Holland. We're going to be talking about Bobi Klintman and then potential others that potentially caught your eye during Summer League. Hal, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm good. I'm great. I can tell when I can tell when we hit the slow part of the season because you keep asking me to come on podcasts. You know, you never serve me the good stuff.
your time to shine is always the off season, man. That's your time to shine.
I don't know how complimentary that is.
It's very complimentary. You're not many others are getting on the Locked On Pistons podcast all the time. You feel me?
That's just because I pay you more, you know?
All right, so let's start off with Ron Holland. So I believe that was, so correct me if I'm wrong, that was the last Pistons Summer League game, correct, on Sunday?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
There's one more title game, but that's just the title game.
Okay, so
and that might be today.
So the Pistons, or Ron Holland specifically, left off Summer League with a bang. He had his best game of Summer League in the final game of the Pistons Summer League season. Just throughout all the games, I'll let you start off. What jumped off the page to you with Ron Holland? Whether it could be a negative, it could be a positive. Was there anything like jumped off the screen to you during these games?
The big thing I was curious about was like, what was his usage going to be, right? What did the Pistons see him as? Because he's kind of a weird player. Is he a 2? Is he a 3? Is he a 4? I've been telling people I see him, or I've seen him in the past be more of a 4, right? That's what he was growing up. And so was he going to be, more of a screen and roll man and like active on the ball in that way? Was he going to be tucked into the corner? And I think it's kind of interesting that for the first, what was it, 3 games he played, and then he played 4. He missed 1. So for the first 3 games, it was more wingy stuff off the ball, right? And I think we saw him pop when they lifted him up out of the corners in that last game, and he played more on the ball. And I thought that was kind of the biggest takeaway for me was, the juice is there. Maybe it just, you can't make him a shooter first and ask him to play out of that. You need to get him more involved on the ball, but certainly you saw the athleticism, you saw the motor, you saw, he's still such a raw defender, but there's such an intensity there that he can work with. So lots of promise, but I think we also saw where the offensive role is going to be a big question continuing forward.
So my biggest takeaway from watching him over these few games was, I said this many times in the podcast, was his relentlessness getting to the basket. And whether that, sometimes it worked against him, sometimes it worked for him, but his relentlessness to just get to the basket over and over and over again was impressive to see. Like I said, sometimes it put him in some tough situations by just, trying to force your way to the basket, forcing some tough shots, maybe turn the ball over some. But his ability to just get there, draw some free throws, cause the defense to react and suck in on defense, opening up some drive and kick opportunities, stuff like that. That was something that jumped off the tape to me throughout Summer League. And like I said, for probably like the 5th time, sometimes it got him in trouble, but that's something that you can work around and something that, it's hard. Not everyone can just get to the basket like that. And the fact that he can do that without having much of a jump shot yet, I think was pretty impressive. You kind of hit on some things. Let's go ahead and get into what you saw in Summer League that he needs to improve on? Something that fans saw that, I think it showcased his Summer League play, showcased how raw of a prospect he is. Because, like you said, you saw the athleticism, you saw the motor, you saw the stuff on defense, his want to, his effort, like all that stuff. You saw the flashes, but I think you also saw why he's such a raw prospect and why I believe that he may not get instant minutes in the NBA this season. They may take him along slowly. Did you see some of that? What was some of the struggles that you saw that maybe could keep him from getting immediate NBA minutes out the gate?
I think the big one that is maybe limiting to his early impact is the lack of foul drawing, and some of that interior craft around the rim. Right, he wasn't as good a finisher as you'd think, considering he is a pretty big player. He's not as long as you might suspect when you hear that he's like 6'7". He doesn't have an insane wingspan, but he didn't finish amazingly well, even as athletic as he is, and it's because he does the same thing that Jaden Ivey sometimes gets trapped into. Bruce Brown was always the go-to because you saw him fix this in one off season, and it's the desire to glide into guys instead of really gathering right underneath guys and going up strong and drawing that contact. Right? He wants to take off right at the elbows and just one step, get in the air and figure something out in the air, and NBA refs just do not reward that. Basically ever, unless some guy really smacks you in the face or something, you can go into somebody's chest there and you're not getting that call. And so that's one of the early lessons where until he figures out how to finish, you can't both be a bad shooter and a bad finisher, right? You have to have at least that. And so I think that's something he really needs to focus on. And then of course there's just the shooting and the overall ball handling and decision making that has to sharpen up. I tell people all the time he wasn't a primary guy in high school. Ron Holland came out of high school really having always been a motor guy and a utility guy, and he was never Cade Cunningham, right? He was never point guard Ron Holland, jumbo point guard doing that kind of stuff. So he's going to have more of a journey, I think, than like Asar does when it comes to the ball handling and playmaking. Right? I think Asar is much further ahead, even though people I think are comparing the two a lot as prospects.
So those are some things that why he may not be in the rotation, may not get immediate NBA minutes. What do you think some fans saw that gives you reason to believe he could get NBA instant minutes for the Pistons? Is there anything that he showcased that would have someone believing that?
Oh, I think that motor is, and every coach wants to see a guy who's going to work his butt off, and when you talk about Ron having the athletic talent he does, the motor he does, he has good defensive instincts. He's not disciplined yet when it comes to some of the stuff on the perimeter and whatnot, and he's got lessons to learn. But especially with the guy in Bickerstaff who has really focused on the defensive end a lot. I think if you say, oh, we're going to put Ron out there for 4-minute stretches here and there just to give us some energy and some juice, the same way Hamidou Diallo got used, right? Just give us some energy, get us out in transition. I can see minutes like that. I don't know if it's going to be a big 22-minute role, especially not if they're trying to win games even a little bit.
So my question for you, Hal, is this: you were a lot higher on Ron Holland than, or of not just you, but a lot of people that we talked to on Twitter as well also really liked Holland as well pre-draft. So this is my question, because I see I'm already seeing it start to happen in the community a little bit. So I want you to give a pitch to kind of calm some fans' worries, because especially, I should say, my goodness, after the Matas Gonzalez matchup, where Matas looked really good in that first half against Ron, there were a lot of fans I saw, not all of them, but there were some fans that were like, "Oh God, you drafted the wrong guy. This guy is you might have went the wrong way." And then Ron did showcase some, like you mentioned, some inefficiency in the summer league due to not being able to really shoot at this point, and because whether it be his raw finishing or shot selection around the rim, however it may have happened, some inefficiency. What is your pitch to calm those concerns? Because, like I said, it wasn't all. I think it was balanced throughout the summer league. I thought you saw some flashes where reasons to really like it. I think you also saw, okay, this is why he's, a raw prospect and it's going to take a minute. For those who maybe are overly concerned already after Summer League, what's your pitch to calm their nerves outside of it's Summer League, calm down?
Well, there's always that. And my thing always remains that, like, if he's the best player available in 4 years, you won the pick, right? Right now is not important. And for me personally, that's why I'm saying I would like them to take the G League team and basically build it around Ron for a season. Like, I'm not worried about him getting senior minutes. They need to make steps to make this a developmental team and make the most out of Ron Holland. He is an awesome athlete. The motor is just one of those things you can't teach that's going to help get the best out of a guy like that. And he keeps flashing these skills that, he had a really hard time stringing them together with the Ignite, in part because the Ignite's roster was so bad, as was this G League or this Summer League roster was abysmal. But like, he's a good passer who finds like passing solutions to problems that most people don't find. He's an awesome athlete. He's got some ball handling stuff to him. If I tell you in 4 years he's one of the 3 best players in this class, that's not going to surprise a lot of people, in the draft community at all. It's just who's in the best position to develop him. And if you're the Pistons, you need to be the team that puts him in the best position, right? You've got the shooting coach. Now go put him in a situation where he gets the reps he needs, where he's in a system that makes sense. But he's certainly one of the most talented players in this draft. There's no question. That's comparing him to someone like Modest or anyone else. There were a lot of guys that were very similar, and you just had to pick the one that you feel is going to be the best for you long term. You can't be worried about picking the guy who's going to win Summer League for you. That's not the goal here.
Yep, completely agree. So we'll see what happens. I think you saw, like I said, some good and some bad. I don't think he's going to be a part of the rotation instantly. I don't think that's a bad thing either, like you mentioned. I think he needs to be developed. I think he needs to be taken along slowly and just throwing him into the fire of getting minutes on a team that seems like wants to take some kind of legitimate jump, whether it be like, fighting for the play-in or simply not being the worst team in the league again. Like, they have some expectations this year. So throwing him into that situation, I don't think
beating your over-under would be awesome this year.
Right. Actually hitting the over-under for the first time.
Just actually hitting the over would be great.
So I don't think he'll be playing immediately, but I think he showcased why the Pistons felt like this guy has the best ceiling in the draft. He may not get there immediately, but we're not playing for immediate. Like you said, we're playing for the long term. We're trying to get him there. So we'll see how it goes. I think you saw plenty to like and some things to watch develop over the next few years with Ron Holland. So, but another player that I felt like, I'm going to say this for my listeners one more time. I've said this many times in the last few days, Hal. I do not think that he's better than Ron Holland. I do not think he's better than Ron Holland. I think he impressed me more than Ron Holland during Summer League because my expectations were not very high. And he kind of blown them out of where they were. And I'm talking about Bobi Klintman. We'll talk about him coming up. I love sports. I've loved them my whole life. I've played them my whole life. I love them so much that I never really want them to stop. But as the playoffs have obviously winded down, we get fewer games. And the sports stop sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. I've told you guys this probably 1,000 times already, that a few years ago when betting became legal in Michigan, I didn't know where to go. I didn't know anything about it. Didn't try anything out before. I tried out FanDuel. I've not turned back since. It's super self-explanatory, super easy to use, and most importantly, extremely fun to use. So again, head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. That's what FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. So before we even get into Klintman's Summer League for the Detroit Pistons, I want to make it abundantly clear again. because you know how things go. You know how things get twisted all the time. We want to make it abundantly clear. I do not think Bobi Klintman is going to be some star. I do not think he's better than Ron Holland. Ron Holland in one game, I think, had more points than Bobi did like through 3 games or something like this last game. Like Ron Holland is obviously the higher ceiling prospect. Let's not twist my words here, okay?
They're gonna pack you up in a Twizzlers bag, buddy.
Let's just everyone calm down here. However, during this summer league, I said in the last episode that Bobi Klintman took over the first segment. He took over the first segment. I gave him the respect of the first segment finally. But I felt like he has impressed out of any player for the summer league. If you walk away from the summer league, you say, okay, which player impressed you the most? I feel like you got to say Bobi Klintman. And maybe that has to do with the lower expectations you had moving into it. I think it has some stuff to do with some things he showed that maybe people weren't expecting for him to see. So, Hal, before I give my thoughts and continue, to share what I felt about Bobi Klintman's summer league, how did you feel about Bobi Klintman's summer league? Because I do think that there were some Pistons fans that were expecting him to be crazy good, convince themselves that this second round pick was going to be a god, how they always go. But I do feel like that you and a few others weren't as high on Klintman before the summer league. How do you feel about him after summer league? Did he impress you at all? How do you feel?
Well, and I'll say to start it that I wasn't as high as some people. I still thought like that was a fine pick and stuff. Like I wasn't like, oh man, they shouldn't have drafted Bobi Klintman. I really didn't feel like that. This was kind of a he is who I thought he was thing for me, except for the playmaking, which definitely popped. My concerns coming in were that he's never really shown the explosion around the rim and really struggles to finish through contact. And I think we saw a lot more of that than we'd like. And then there's just a lot of defensive immaturity for Klintman that he has to clean up, closeouts and stuff like that. But when it comes to just like, hey, this is a guy who's long, he's tall, he shoots the threes. I think I saw something earlier that he might have been the best shooting draft pick from deep in this summer league. Like, that's all very impressive. And then the ability to slash, he has a pretty good handle for such a tall player. And then the interior passing, especially for somebody where the concern is the finishing and whether or not he can really do that. The ability to at least, when he gets into the paint, find a smart option is, something that's going to really kind of smooth over some of those cracks. And just in general, I mean, you can't ask for much more than that from a second round pick. I'm very happy with Klintman. And I think, I don't know whether he's a guy that I'm like, oh, he's got to get minutes for the Pistons, but I just said that I want to see Holland maybe get some run in the G League. And, someone like Klintman should be really good in the G League and really help someone like Holland, have a nice time there. And I think that's a major win, even if that's all it is.
Yeah, so I really liked what I saw from Klintman during summer league. I don't think he's going to be a star ever. I don't think he showcased that he's about to be like this starter in the NBA. I don't think he showcased that he's about to be this all-world rookie or anything.
No Swedish KD?
No, not that. I did see someone say that a few days ago. That no, not that. Though his jump shot is beautiful. I don't know, but like his jump shot when he gets the full follow through going, it looks really cool. I'm not gonna lie to you.
I just need his knees not to knock together every time. That's all. Let's just work on that.
His follow through looks nice, man. He doesn't care about contesting.
Stuff up top's pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like you mentioned, the finishing wasn't there. It wasn't. He still struggled as a finisher. But like you mentioned, what really popped for me was I did not expect even a little bit. Like I had zero expectations for him as a playmaker, as a processor, as a connector. I had zero expectations for that. And I think that was the best part of his game in the summer league. Like you mentioned, he was the best 3-point shooting. I saw that as well, that he was the best 3-point shooting rookie on 6 attempts during summer league. So he can shoot the ball. He's 6'9", can space the floor, makes good decisions. Like you mentioned, I feel like he can attack, or at least showcase, he can attack some closeouts. Maybe not do too crazy stuff with it, but he's capable of taking one dribble, surveying, and either I'm catching, shooting, catching, dribble, pass, catching, dribble, shoot. It's not catching, dribble, stopping the ball movement. Yeah. It's either I'm shooting, I'm catching, dribble, attacking to create this, or I'm passing the ball, we're keeping it moving. I don't think I can remember one time when he got a kick out and all of a sudden the ball stopped. He's trying to ISO. Like never once happened.
And there wasn't a lot of times where it was he's driving into too much traffic, losing the handle. Like we saw that with Ron a little bit, right? Where he's trying to press too much and get to the rim too much. We didn't really see that from Klintman. He took the easy way out and kept the ball moving pretty well. And I think that's certainly what you want to see more than the alternative of trying to press too hard into traffic.
Yeah, and the one time I said this in the last podcast, the one time it did feel like he maybe dribbled himself into some trouble. He threw a behind the head pass to a cutting guy down the baseline. So it's like
that was pretty nice.
That was the one
time. Nice.
Yes, that was the one time I felt like he actually did dribble himself into trouble, and he made it up with doing that. But like you mentioned, I think that he's showing that he can carve out a rotation role. If not immediately, like obviously at some point, I feel like he showed that he has a ceiling as an impactful role player. Again, not as a star or anything, but a guy that can legitimately help you on both ends of the floor, do the smart things, keep the ball moving. I can't emphasize enough how much his playmaking really popped for me. Whether it was, like you said, the interior passing, even in the final 2 games, you saw some stuff off a live dribble. I saw him make a cross-court skip pass in the 4th game to the right corner out of the pick and roll. Like we saw him throw alley-oops in transition to Ron Holland. We saw him one play. He was leaking out. They threw the ball to him before he even took one dribble. He threw it behind his back because he just sensed and knew that Ron was going to be behind him. There's like stuff like that points to me or shows me I have good feel. I know where I'm at. I have good map awareness. I said this like I was comparing to like when you play Call of Duty for any of the gamers out there. Like if you know where you are in the map, you know where everyone else is on the map, and you know how to play off of that. Maybe you don't have the best skill. Maybe you don't have it, but you know where everyone else is at, where you're at, and you know how to play off of it, and creates a lot of openings. So I just really was impressed with that. And like you mentioned, if you're not going to be a good finisher, if you can shoot and you can make up for it by being a willing and capable playmaker and create open shots for other guys with your off-ball playmaking, not so much the on-ball playmaking, but the off-ball playmaking, I think that's pretty valuable. And I compared it a little bit to what people thought Livers was going to be. But I feel like he showcases more playmaking instincts than Livers does. Our friend Dope, he was messaging me like a week and a half ago, and he's the one who let me know that hey, he played some point guard. I heard in where what do you know? What do you know where was?
He grew up in Sweden and spent most of his time there before he joined. I think he was a Sunrise Christian guy, which I think is in Kansas. The final, like his senior year of high school. So most of his time was in Sweden, and he's played it for the national team a little bit as well in like the youth ranks. So he's done a little bit of point guard. And I've watched, I think maybe 3 of those games, just kind of in chunks. I didn't get a ton of Sweden stuff, but like it wasn't this. I think we're seeing him, have a clear step up from where he was. Certainly at Wake, and I watched 5 or 6 NBL games this year, and I didn't see he had a much smaller role than this, and this wasn't what he was asked to do. But this is very much a coming out party for this side of his game.
So what do you think, to wrap up this segment, because I don't want to spend like 20 minutes talking about Bobi Klintman as if he's like about to be a superstar, but what do you think he can do? Because I've already seen some people like, okay, maybe he gets minutes this year. I don't know about that. I mean, it's possible, but I don't know if I see that yet. What would he have to do, you feel like, to crack and get some minutes at like the 4 spot? I want to know if you agree with me. I don't necessarily know if he has to improve his finishing. I think it's more so on the defensive end. What do you think?
Certainly the defense, and I think the number one thing he has to do is be healthy when somebody gets traded or gets hurt, right? It's be available, right? The between Asar, Tech, Stu, Tobias, right? Between the forward room, he's not going to be a priority. And Ron, of course, he's not going to be a priority. So, get in the G League, work on your stuff, work on the defense, be ready because somebody's going to get hurt, right? That's just what it is. Hopefully it's not, anything serious and it's, 5 games missed with an ankle sprain or whatever. That's your time, make the most of it. And, who knows if, someone like Tobias Harris, right? They want him here. They like him here. But if the right deal comes along or something, who knows? I don't think this roster is going to be set in stone by any means through the deadline. So, any of those guys getting moved could open up minutes. Any injury could open up minutes. You just got to stay ready. And when that happens, he has to be, like you said, I think it has to be keep those minutes by playing the defense. I'm pretty sure the shooting has been very stable for a while now. So I think offensively he'll have a role, and it's just, can you stay on the floor defensively?
All right, we'll see what happens. Bobi Klintman, I thought, was incredibly impressive. So I think Trajan might have found himself his first hit in the second round. I think he could be pretty good role player, but we'll see how it plays out this rookie NBA season. When we come back, though, Marcus Sasser, is there anyone else? Jenkins, that maybe caught Hal's eyes during Summer League. We'll talk about that coming up. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, and you'll get your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers at ebaymotors.com. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. Free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. So Hal, before we get into potential low-key players that caught your eye, I think it's only right if we go immediately into Marcus Sasser, because I do feel like Marcus Sasser has been a little bit of the punching bag over the last week and a half, by myself included. I've been pretty critical of his. What was your takeaway from Marcus Sasser's Summer League? I feel like it's going to be rather similar to my takeaway, but I want the listeners to hear what you feel like.
So we keep running into the same problem with Sasser, right? Which is that we know what he does and we know what he doesn't do, and we kind of know how NBA rosters are built, right? So we know what he does, which is he's a pretty good point of attack defender, right? Very technically sound. He's a very good three-point shooter and a very good ball handler. And we know what he doesn't do, which is really make plays super well. Like, he gets assists when he has to play point guard because, like, he's just passing within the offense, and it's just kind of something that happens. But, like, he's not generating, like, dynamic, kickouts or anything. It's not really his game. Like, Klintman made, all the best passes for this team in Summer League. So, we say, okay, well, Sasser's not really a point guard. He's a shooting guard. And we say, okay, well, what are you asked to do as a shooting guard? And it's defend, 2, 3s, and 4s. It's be a rim threat on the cut off of a point guard. It's doing things that Sasser doesn't do defensively, and it's doing things that he's pretty limited at offensively. And then it's just like, okay, if he's not really a point guard that I can trust to play point guard, and maybe he's an okay shooting guard, but there's there's probably 50 plus wings, if not more, that are better at the 2 or 3 than what you're going to get out of Sasser. So where does that leave him in a roster? And that's where I always end up, because, like, he's not a bad basketball player, but he's not an NBA point guard, and the NBA just doesn't have room for people his size that aren't legitimately good point guards.
So that's exactly where I'm at with it. I said on one of the podcasts, I don't know if it was the last one or like 2 podcasts ago, that, like, Marcus Sasser's in a tough position, because I feel like no matter what happens, this is going to be the conversation, because they've tried to play him at point guard. They talk about how they want him to improve as a playmaker, as a point guard. But I think everyone knows, including himself, knows that he's not a point guard. Even in his initial press conference as a rookie, said, I'm a guy that can play off of point guards. I'm a guy that can play off of Cade. I'm the guy that can play off of Ivy. Even mentioned I can play off of Killian. That was at the time when Killian was still on the roster. Like, guys, I can play off of other guys offensively. I'm not someone like that's running the offense, which is true. So when you have him playing point guard, then you have a lot of frustration from the fan base. You have a lot of people like myself saying, stop doing it. He can't play point guard. It's hurting himself and the other people. So that happens. But then, like you said, okay, well, he has to be an off-ball guard then. Okay, well, if you play him off-ball, he can score. He can shoot the ball. He's a good ball handler. I feel like he's a better ball handler in terms of shot creation rather than, like you mentioned, getting dribble penetration and then finding someone else open.
Yep.
So, like, as far as shot creation, he's great. He's great at creating space for a jump shot. But, okay, if you do that, now you probably need, I've mentioned this, like, a free agent that's available. Maybe someone like a Marco Fultz next to him who's a bigger point guard that can then guard the twos and run the show, and then on defense allow Sasser to guard the 1 point of attack. So that's like the ideal situation for him. But then, like you mentioned, I feel like at that point you have to be such a great scorer to where it's worth doing that. Or like you mentioned, there's 50 plus players that you can play at the two that aren't. I mean, there's undersized guards that.
Let's look at our roster right now, right?
Who's
what kind of two guards do you have on the roster right now? You got Hardaway Jr. and Beasley, right? Are either one of those guys like really starter level shooting guards in your mind?
Right. No.
Yeah. Both of them are going to be more valuable than Sasser, right? And neither one of them is technically a superior defender, but they're just longer, right? Like, it's just the court coverage they get is just better. People aren't going to shoot over them, right? Your average 6'7" wing shoots over a guy like Sasser. Just is what it is. They're both good shooters, right? And they're both good movement shooters who can get their shot off without needing to create separation, right? Sasser sometimes struggles as a catch and shoot guy because any kind of closeout gets up into his space. He has to create a little more separation, make sure he gets like the timing right to get that shot off. Those wings that are 6'5" and can pull from anywhere, they're just more useful players for the most part. And I don't necessarily think like if you're creating like 2K ratings, right? I don't know that those guys really have like 2K ratings that are better than Sasser, but when you take their ratings and you put them in that body type, it's just a more valuable, overall player. And that's just kind of what it comes down to.
Yeah, I agree. And it goes, like you said at the beginning, Sasser, and so I don't think Sasser's a bad basketball player. He's a very talented scorer. He can create some of his handles when creating a space for a jump shot, probably some of the best I've seen from a Piston player in like the last few years. Like he's crazy with his handle. He can score, but I think in order for him to carve himself, and I've mentioned this before, I do think he's one of the likelier players to be moved. So I don't reference just the Pistons. Just as an NBA career, he's going to need to become a legitimate great scorer to where he's one of those like a Sacramento Kings Isaiah Thomas type, to where he's coming into the game and I'm scoring. I'm like instant offense for you. I'm a sixth man. I'm coming in. I'm just coming in and I'm worthy of taking up that type of usage because I'm that great of a shooter. I'm that great of a scorer. I'm bringing that type of punch to where it's worth doing that. It's worth taking the potential downside of playing an undersized two guard 20 plus minutes a night. So it's just, I just don't know where his fit is for the Pistons. And that's why, again, Sasser himself is not a bad player. It's like you mentioned, it's just hard to see, okay, where is he fitting? Like, where's his minutes coming from? How are you making a rotation spot for him? That he's not a backup point guard. He can't play point guard. And the Pistons, I feel like even if they didn't have Hardaway and Beasley, do you really want to run an Ivy Sasser backcourt? No, like it's just like
we've seen that one.
So it's I feel bad for him, to be honest, because like I said, he's a good player. He's a really good offensive scorer. It's just like I feel like he's in a tough situation with the Pistons where no matter what he does, this is going to be the takeaway almost every time. Like even when he scored 27 points, I came on the podcast. I'm like, well, yeah, we know he can score. It's like I feel like I'm being unfair.
It's all playmaking. It's just the playmaking. You have to be able to generate legitimately good shots for other people if you're going to play point guard, right? The difference between Marcus Sasser and Kemba Walker is one of them was an elite, pick and roll playmaker, and one of them isn't. And it's the margin that you have to be good at in order to make that position. And right now, Sasser, we're a year into this, and unfortunately, he's an older college player, so we've seen a lot of sample size, and it's just never been his game.
All right, so let's move on from Sasser real quick and finish off with someone else because I don't want – because I legitimately feel bad because it's not like he's one of those players that like is like not good and we're ripping. I feel like he legitimately has really nice talent.
And
but
when
just
when you watched him like in college, and like if he's not an NBA guy and he goes overseas, he's so fun. Like he's a great hooper, just like not a guy you can really build an NBA team around. And that's it's unfortunate, but like he is really fun to watch.
So, is there any other summer league players for the Pistons that jumped off the page for you? For me, it was Jenkins. I thought
Yeah.
Jenkins was playing really well the first few games. I think he kind of flatlined a little bit, but even still, I thought he really impressed. Was there anyone else for you?
Uh Not really, unfortunately. I didn't think we saw much of Wendell Moore, and considering he was a guy on a standard contract, it was like, well, that's unfortunate. You really want that kind of player to come out and pop. Jalen Slauson was a previous guy who kind of your draft people really liked. Not a great summer league overall for him. Um, but Jenkins, especially Jenkins, is a guy that I didn't really watch at all. In college. I've probably seen like 4 games of his, and it wasn't he wasn't a guy that blew me out of the water, and I wasn't watching for him when I watched those games. So he came in, he looked really competent. He moves the ball well. He has the size, that Sasser doesn't, to just kind of fit a couple of different roles if you need him to. And again, that's a player where like he's on a two-way. You send him down to to the cruise, and maybe people like he and Klintman make Ron Holland's life easy with the cruise, and you build a good cruise team with players like that. And if if you're losing point guard minutes for some reason because you got some injuries or whatever, maybe he has an outside chance at coming into the NBA, and hopefully things work out for him.
Yeah, I think Jenkins was the only one who caught my eye. I think he was legitimately outplaying Sasser for like the first 2 to 3 games. But even after that, I feel like he's even though when he slowed down a little bit, I think he showed okay. There's some NBA skills there. There's some legitimate NBA skills there that in the future, if I found out he was someone that lasted in the NBA like 6, 7 years, I wouldn't be
Yep.
shocked. Like it was like okay, I see how he carved out
A,
a role
a
in the NBA.
process you generally liked, right?
Right.
Just generally, it was like, yeah, this is a guy who's playing things the way I want him to play it. Maybe you'd like him to hit a few more shots here or there or whatever, but it was like, yep, that's the play I wanted him to make pretty consistently.
So to wrap up the podcast, I want to say this: how was there anyone in summer league outside the Pistons that was like, oh, okay, that was a surprise guy. I really liked what I saw from him. I'll tell you who it was. I already told you who it was. The white boy for the Rockets. The white boy point guard. That was it. The Rockets. The Rockets, right? Yeah, that dude was a baller. But I don't care what anyone.
Reed Shepard. Reed Shepard can hoop. Yeah.
No, not Reed Shepard. Not Reed Shepard.
Not Reed Shepard.
Solak. Which one? Who is he?
Oh, not the Rockets. Not the Rockets. The Knicks.
Yes, that dude can hoop.
Tyler Kolek, yeah.
I have never. Oh, Kolak. I have never heard of him before. I watched that one game. I'm like, bro, this guy can hoop. I don't care. I don't know how he didn't get drafted. This dude can hoop.
That guy, Tyler Kolek, is like a legitimate like A-grade passer. He's got like a handle. He can shoot. He can shoot off the dribble. He's just like not really NBA athlete. When it comes to like pop, especially. So like he's gonna have to do the TJ McConnell thing where he wins on like shiftiness and just being like really gritty and strong. But yeah, he can play, and for several years at Marquette, there he was one of the best point guards in the country. So yeah, he's a fun one. He was a guy I had a first round grade on, and pretty much any contender that could support him defensively, it was like, yeah, that dude's gonna ball out. The Knicks. I don't know where the minutes are for him there, and he's an older player, so you'd hope he can earn them quickly. But they got like Deuce McBride, but he's a fun player.
Is there any other player throughout summer league that maybe you were high on pre-draft that played pretty well, or someone that caught your eye that you want to give, my goodness, a quick shout out to?
I'll give a shout out to Cam Whitmore, who played terrible in the Pistons game, but outside of that, it's just like that's a human cruise missile. He's just a nutso athlete who has that kind of like Westbrook mentality of like, I can dunk on you and I will dunk on you, which is just so rare. And then pre-draft, like my big concern with him was he wasn't much of a playmaker, and he was throwing some lasers in some of their games this summer league. So yeah, I think the Rockets kind of famously snapped up like multiple members of draft Twitter like 3 or 4 years ago, and took them all out of the public space, and we're all very sad about that. And ever since then, they just keep having everybody's favorite drafts because they just keep getting really, really fun players.
Yeah, don't you probably are going to get a lot of mentions after that one. You just Cam Whitmore, good stuff. What Cam Whitmore usually means bad stuff from Pistons fans. So we'll see how that one turns out. But all right, we'll wrap up the podcast there. Appreciate you, Hal, coming on. You guys can follow Hal over on Twitter at HalBritius. Appreciate you coming on, man.
Anytime.
Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Hit that subscribe button at the YouTube channel. Leave us a 5-star review, whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. Till next time, I'll see you guys later. Stay safe out there. Till next time, peace out.